Rebecca is on Twitter. Dave, how come you never consider bankruptcy if individuals are deep in financial crisis? Well, Rebecca, there are good people that sometimes go through bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a devastating, life-altering decision. Divorce is a devastating, life-altering decision. And I don't tell people to do either one. I'm not mad at you if you do either one, and I'll help you if you do either one, but I'm not going to allow you to say, Dave Ramsey said for me to file for a divorce. Dave Ramsey said for me to file bankruptcy, so that makes it okay. Because then you're going to go through hell, and I'm going to have that on me. So you may decide to go through that, and again, I'll help you, but it's not... in either case, I put them in the same category. It should be your absolute, after you've tried everything else, and then tried everything else again. It ought to be your absolute last thing on your list of things to do. And so I find people with bankruptcy, and I've been through bankruptcy. I filed bankruptcy when I was 28 years old, 30 years ago. And it was hell. It was awful to go through. The leading up to it was hell. Going through it was hell. It is not a fun process, being that broke and broken. And them going through your underwear drawer and want to know every little detail of your life. And everybody's got rights on your head. It's not a good thing. So it's not something to be entered into until you've tried everything else. And too often I find people think it's going to fix their stuff, and it's really not going to fix your stuff. Your stuff is so screwed by the time you get to bankruptcy, if you really file, that you ain't got any stuff. It's over. So here's an example, okay? Here's the things to remember. Bankruptcy does not do away with child support. You still owe it. Bankruptcy does not do away with IRS debt 99% of the time. You still owe it. Bankruptcy does not do away with student loan debt. You still owe it. Bankruptcy does not do away with secured debt if you reaffirm the debt to keep the car or the house. Secured debt is something that debt against an asset. If you want to keep the boat, if you want to keep the car, if you want to keep the house, if you want to keep the couch, if you want to keep whatever they have a lien on, you have to agree to pay the debt. You don't get to keep the item and knock the debt off. And so I run into people who reaffirm their car debt, reaffirm their house debt, they've got student loan debt and an IRS lien and some back child support, and so they come out of bankruptcy with all that still there. And they end up having net, having filed bankruptcy on $8,000 worth of credit card debt. Well, that's dumber than crap. You didn't do anything. So if you're going to reaffirm all the secured debt to keep your crap, to keep the stupid stuff that you couldn't afford in the first place, then you've screwed up the whole thing. It doesn't work. And so if you're going to give up your house, you're going to give up your car, you're going to give up your life, you're going to give up everything and walk away from the debt and start down at ground zero in the dirt, you can do that. And it does clear off everything but student loans, child support, and IRS. Or any criminal restitution. You're not getting rid of that. You're going to pay that as well. And so, or I'm going to pay payments in bankruptcy. Chapter 13 bankruptcy is what that's called, a wage earner's plan, which you're forced to do, by the way. You're not allowed to do a Chapter 7 if you have the income to pay payments. So people go in to file bankruptcy, and they're forced, by the way, the calculation that the law requires your bankruptcy attorney to do, that you can't file a Chapter 7 and wipe off the debt. Instead, you have to enter into a Chapter 13, which is 60 months of payments. If you're going to do that, you can do that without filing bankruptcy. You can pay 60 months of payments without filing bankruptcy. Well, they're after me. It's out of control. They're bothering me. Well, I know. They're going to bother you. You don't think they're going to bother you in bankruptcy? They're not going to call you. But you try missing one of those payments. Now they're really seriously going to come down on your head. So the problem is that, if you have a really good fight with your wife and then you file divorce, it doesn't solve your problem. Because all you've got is a relational problem, and the relational problem's still there. And if you get behind on your bills and you just file bankruptcy, you still got the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. It treats the symptom. And so I'm not mad at you for filing bankruptcy, but I'm not going to be the guy that gave you permission to file a life-altering thing in your life that caused you to go into hell. Okay? And most of the time, there's other options that are better when you actually net out what the actual net effect of your filing is. And so a Chapter 7 is what most people think of when they think of bankruptcy. That's the total liquidation. 98% of the Chapter 7 filings in the nation are no asset filings, meaning the person had no assets left to pay against their creditors. So they're not sitting on a bunch of money. They've already used up their money or whatever in the process, right? And so it's a no asset case. They don't have any money to pay bills with. And so then you're looking at turning over any of your secured assets, or you're going to pay those payments anyway. You don't get to keep the car without keeping the car payments. You don't get to keep the house without keeping the house payments. You don't get to walk away from student loan debt. You don't walk away from IRS debt. You don't walk away from criminal restitution. You don't walk away from student loan debt. It's all staying. It's all surviving your bankruptcy. So, again, by the time I net all of that out, I haven't. Most of the time you're filing bankruptcy on a few $1,000s, $20,000, $30,000, $15,000, $10,000, and it's really just because you didn't have any hope. No one showed you how you could scratch out. No one showed you how you could make it. No one showed you how you could turn this around, and it really wasn't. You weren't that far away from actually turning the corner, and I can show you how to do that. So that's the reason. And in a few cases where, someone has a $500,000 in debt and they have zero income and they're going to file bankruptcy, and that $500,000 is just going to go away in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, I'm not going to yell at you for that. I'm not mad at you. I'm not making a moral statement about you. I'm just saying, from a practical standpoint, is it worth the cost? Did you move the needle? Did you change your life? Because you are going to change your life in a negative way. I've been through it. It's hell. It is not something you want someone you love to go through. And then a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, again, is a series of payments. That's the two primary types of bankruptcy, Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Get this, 78% of the Chapter 13 payment plans fail because the very mess that's in people's lives, the inability to live on a budget, the income problem, whatever the problem is still there when you go into bankruptcy, and so they don't make it through paying the payments, and they end up rolling into a 7 after all. So these things, if it helped you, if it really helped you, I'd be all for it. And it didn't, man. Please, I just want to love you well. That's all.